The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And the first item on the agenda is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of June 14, 2018 meeting.
I move we approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to extend the tentative designation of Wharf 8 Pier 7 Partnership, LLC, as redeveloper of Wharf 8 Pier 7 project, and to continue lease negotiations to facilitate the redevelopment and use of the proposed project. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wharf 8 Pier 7 Partnership was awarded tentative designation by BPDA in July of 2013. They're proposing 2 buildings to be built over the water sheet. The site is, just to remind you, is just water at this point. They'll need to develop a deck and then put the buildings on top of the deck. The designation was extended several times pending resolution on the state level regarding commercial developments in a designated port area, particularly on water. The designated port area and Chapter 91 regulations have now been formally revised by the Commonwealth to allow commercial buildings over the flood tidelands. And the current designation expires at the end of this month, July 31st. We're requesting, at this time, only a 30-day extension to allow the developer to commence the Article 80 process and advance their subtenant agreements. And I look forward to coming back at the August board meeting for an update.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions by the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis. Item number 3, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with Deakin Transportation, doing business as the Old Town Trolley Tours of Boston, to use EDIC-owned property located at close proximity to the Black Falcon Cruise Terminal and to operate 2018 trolley stop program. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since 2009, BPDA has licensed space to trolley tour companies in the Raymond Flynn Marine Park during the cruise season. The trolleys provide tours of Boston to cruise ship passengers visiting Boston during port of call. The program not only generates revenue for the agency, but it also helps the Municipal Protective Service and my colleagues in the BPDA operations staff by dissuading passengers from the ships from meandering around the industrial park. In May of 2018, we issued a request of proposals for the trolley stop program for the 2018 cruise season. The sole respondent was Deakin Transportation, more commonly known as Old Town Trolley. They've been doing it for several years since the program's inception, and they've proven to be a respectful and professional partner with BPDA. So we're requesting permission to enter into a license agreement with Deakin Transportation for the remainder of the 2018 cruise season.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 4, personnel. Anyone from personnel? Jeanette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. We have a few items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda. We have 4 appointments for your consideration with all details in the board memos. Shirley Austin and Azan Reed, both case manager positions in the Youth Options Unlimited Department starting July 16th. 2 new employees will be starting July 30th. Marcus Mello, Urban Designer 1, with the Planning Division Urban Design Department, and David Damiani, Lead Financial Coach, with the OWD Division Office of Financial Empowerment Department. For your consideration, we have 18 promotions, market adjustments as part of the 2018 performance management process, with details listed in the board memos. We have 1 employment service agreement for your consideration for a revision for Ryan Frania in the Compliance Department, with details listed in the board memo for your review. We have 2 travel items for your consideration with details listed in the board memos. Dolores Fazio in the Real Estate Division and Jared Staley in the Planning Division. We have 1 departure Midori Morikawa, Deputy Director of Workforce and Policy Development in the OWD Division Workforce and Policy Department as of July 13th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeanette. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Next item is a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry,
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. The first item is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of June 14, 2018 meeting. Motion's in order.
I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The next three items I'm going to do is one vote. They're just requests for hearings. I'll read them. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on Thursday, August 16th, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. are at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the Emerson College Institutional Master Plan Amendment and 171 through 172 Tremont Street as a development impact project. Item number 3, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on Thursday, August 16, 2018 at 5:40 p.m. are at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the Exchange South End project as a development impact project and to consider the development plan for planned development area number 119. Item number 4 has been removed. Item number 5, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on Thursday, August 16th, 2018 at 6 p.m. are at a date and time to be determined by the director regarding the 6th amendment to the master plan for planned development area number 87, Boston Landing, and the 1st amendment to the development plan for the residential project at 125 Guest Street project within planned development area number 87 for Boston Landing and Brighton. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 6, Board of Appeal. Are there any changes, Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No changes. 32 petitions have been recommended to the Board of Appeal for their hearings on the 19th and the 31st.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Item number 7, request authorization to execute a contract with Capital Contractors, Inc. for the 2018 Landscape and Hardscape Services Program for the downtown waterfront properties. Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. On May 17th of 2018, the board authorized the Secretary to advertise an invitation for bids for the 2018 Waterfront Maintenance Services Program. On May 30th, 2018, and in accordance with MGL Chapter 30B, all IFB documents were made available to the public. Notices and advertisements were posted with the BRA contracts portal, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Combis system, the Boston Herald, the Bay State Banner, El Mundo, the Central Register, the City Record, and also placed with the city's small and local business office to encourage participation of both MBEs and WBEs. In addition, BRA staff proactively reached out to 6 MBE, WBE firms identified from the state's directory of certified businesses. 9 vendors downloaded the IFB from the BRA website. On June 20th, 2018, one sealed bid was submitted to the Secretary's office. That bid was from Capital Contractors, Inc. Capital Contractors has performed these duties on behalf of the BRA for the previous 2 seasons without incident or complaint. Pending the board's approval, we will enter into a contract with Capital Contract for the 2018 season. The BRA will hold 2 options for the 2019 and 2020 seasons that may be exercised at the BRA's sole discretion. total contract award under this IFP shall not exceed $80,000 annually, with a maximum of $240,000 over a possible 3-year span. The IFP also allows for a contingency price for services not anticipated or included in the IFP, not to exceed $20,000 each year. Funding will come through the BRA's operating budget. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for the
Okay,
board.
thank you, Ed. Are there any questions from the board?
I have one question, Ed. Is it unusual to just get one bid?
It is not unusual. We see this from time to time. I think our obligation to be in compliance with state procurement laws means that, quite frankly, we ask an awful lot of our vendors. But we certainly, as I have said to the board, we've tried to walk that extra mile to try to reach out to as many MBE and WB firms that we may not have done work with in the past.
Great, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Ed. Item number 8, request authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for the cleaning services at the China Trade Building located at 2 Boylston Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In soliciting bids for the cleaning of the China Trade Building and for the first time using the state's Combis online system, BRA recommended to the board in February of this year the award of a 2-year contract to M&M Contract Cleaning, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $224,415. M&M began providing services to the building on May 1st of this year. However, soon after the beginning of that work, staff received multiple inquiries and complaints from the tenants in the building. We certainly worked with M&M to try to respond and to improve the level of services. We sent a written warning to the vendor on June the 4th of this year. Suffice to say, the level of service has not improved, and it was the opinion of the staff that the authority's best interest would be served by the termination of the contract, and a written notice was issued to M&M on July 11th, 2018. In order to provide continuing janitorial services to the building, it is the staff's recommendation that the secretary be authorized to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for janitorial services. The funds used for the cleaning work will be paid for by the rental from the tenant leases located in the China Trade Center. I also might add, we expect full occupancy of the building on or around August the 1st of this year. If there are any questions, again, I'll endeavor to answer.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Are there any questions from the board?
Was this a W or MBE?
Yes.
Okay, if there's no further questions, motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 9, request authorization to submit an application to the Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Urban Development Mass Works Infrastructure Program in support of various projects, and to enter into a grant agreement with respective entities of said projects and to take all related actions. Teresa?
Hello. So annually, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, on behalf of the City of Boston, submits a number of applications to the state for Mass Works grants. We are asking your authorization today to submit those applications.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Teresa. Item number 10, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with the Commonwealth's Department of Conservation and Recreation for use of parking lot number 1 at Bunker Hill Community College, located on parcel P15B in the Charlestown Urban Renewal area, for short-term staging of security vehicles and other Commonwealth-owned assets. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The BRA, acting through its parking manager, ABM Services, is now managing the 2 lots adjacent to Bunker Hill Community College. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation recently requested the short-term use of the property referred to as Parking Lot 1 at BHCC and located on Rutherford Avenue on a portion of parcel P15B in the Charlestown Urban Renewal area for the staging of security vehicles and other Commonwealth-owned assets. Because of the time-sensitive nature of DCR's request, BPDA staff recommends that the board retroactively authorize the director to enter into a license agreement with DCR for the requested use. The period for this license was from June the 21st through July 7th of 2018. DCR has already cleaned and vacated the site, restoring it to its former state. Although there were no reported incidents, as a state agency, DCR is self-insured. Owing to the public nature of the event, it is the staff's recommendation that the license fee be waived.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ed. Item number 11, request authorization to enter into a license agreement for short-term activation use of 555 Columbia Road in Dorchester. Natalia.
Natalia Urtubey. Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the board, Director Golden. My name is Natalia Urtubey, and I'm the Executive Director of Imagine Boston 2030 in the Mayor's Office. I'm here to present about temporary activation and licensing of 555 Columbia Road in Upham's Corner in Dorchester. As you may know, Upham's Corner is a spotlight in Imagine Boston 2030 as an enhanced neighborhood to foster the creation of an arts and innovation district. The BPDA, along with several City of Boston departments, including D&D, Economic Development, Arts and Culture, and the Boston Public Library, have been working to implement this vision since last October. The community has been very positive and engaged throughout this process. During community meetings, we have heard from residents that there is a need for programming in the neighborhood centered around arts, health and wellness, and youth engagement. While we wrap up the community process, we have also been working on a short-term activation that includes this community feedback. Such activations include a new farmers market, historic walking tours, youth theater programming, artist workspace, and more. In May of this year, the BPDA and the City of Boston issued a request for ideas for the use of an otherwise empty building, 555 Columbia Road. From the RFI, we received more than a dozen submissions. From these, 8 community partners came together to form a partnership to activate the space. These 8 groups will program this building for public use with activities like free yoga, artist collaboration and workspace, theater production and classes, workforce development, and community engagement opportunities. Today I'm here to request that the BPDA board issue a license for a short-term activation of this building to Cadence Arts, one of the 8 groups previously mentioned. Cadence is a nonprofit organization that incubates artistic projects, curates performances, and engages local communities through music making. As a licensee, Cadence Arts will collaborate with the following partners to maximize community access, impact, and diverse programming. They're listed above, but it's Design Studio for Social Intervention, which is DS4SI, Company One Theater, Youth Build Boston, Hands to Heart Yoga, Union Capital Boston, Masonry Studios, and Hip Story. We're thrilled to present this project to you and look forward to a continued partnership with the community. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
I have one question about the 6-month term. As someone who does entertainment programming all the time, it does take time to build audiences, and I'm just curious, it seems a little short. Was a longer license considered?
Yes, and we're open to extending the license. We wanted to see and test out different pilots and pop-ups, and so we will wait and see, how the different organizations do, and hope to be able to extend the license at that point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
The ayes
you.
have it. Thank you. Congratulations. Item number 12, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion to Cleveland Circle Development Associates, LLC, for the Cleveland Circle project located at 375 through 399 Chestnut Hill Ave in Brighton. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 13. I'm going to ask some of the representatives of the elected officials that wanted to speak on behalf of this item to please get up and state your name and who you're representing. I think there's might be like 3 people here tonight.
Yes, sir.
So if you could do that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, my name is Stephen Harvey. I'm a representative from at-large City Councilor Michael Flaherty's office. I have a statement to read on his behalf. Councilor Flaherty recognizes that this project complies with the growth zone guidelines and that it would provide a unique and valuable community benefit in the developer's commitment to preserve the Notre Dame Adult Education Center. The councilor also acknowledges the comment letters and opposition submitted by many of the nearest residents. Because his foremost obligation is to his constituents, Councilor Flaherty stands with the neighbors and is at this time not in support, but rather encourages and expects that the developer team will continue to work with neighbors to address the quality of life concerns. That is his statement, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden. My name is Charlie Levin. I work for Councilor Ed Flynn. Here I have a letter from Councilor Flynn indicating that, as it stands currently, he's opposed to the project at 200 to 204 Old Colony Ave. We've heard a number of concerns from abutters, in short, related to the height and density of the proposed building, parking and transportation, as well as a desire to see further engagement with the community and abutters. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. I'm Karen Foley from City Councilor Anissa Asabi George's office, and we want to go on record in opposition to the current proposal at 202 to 204 Old Colony Avenue. Andrew Square Civic, Cityside Association, and the abutters are all in opposition to this project, and we stand with them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay, I'm going to read the motion here. Request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving the requirements for further review pursuant to Article 80, large project review for the All Saints Development LLC to demolish the 2 existing structures and for construction of 55,919 square foot mixed-use building consisting of 49 residential units, including 8 income-restricted units, 9,800 square feet of educational space for the Notre Dame Education Center, 31 off-street parking spaces, 902 square feet of bicycle storage and rental space located at 200 through 2004 Old Colony Avenue, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. The item before you this afternoon is the proposed 200-204 Old Colony Ave project located in South Boston. The project site consists of approximately 12,500 square feet of land and is currently occupied by a 2-story building occupied by the Notre Dame Education Center at 200 Old Colony Ave and a single-family home located at 11 Frederick Street. The proposal itself consists of the demolition of the 2 buildings occupying the site and the construction of a 6-story mixed-use building with 49 residential units, 31 off-street parking spaces, and about 9,800 square feet of replacement space for the Notre Dame Education Center. Before discussing the proposed project in more detail, I would like to provide you with a very brief overview of the plan and context for this area. This parcel is situated within the planned South Boston Dorchester Avenue study area. As you already may know, the planned South Boston Ave initiative was a BPDA-led 2-year public planning process that involved a variety of community stakeholders and an interdepartmental working group. In December of 2016, after an inclusive and extensive, approximately 2-year community planning process, the BPDA board voted to approve the planned South Boston Ave initiative. The proposed project, which you will be hearing about in more detail shortly and will be voting on this afternoon, was guided by this plan and is consistent with the requirements set forth in it. With respect to the Article 80 review process, this particular project underwent large project review. The proponent submitted a letter of intent to the BPDA for the proposal on March 9, 2018, which led to the formation of a 10-member impact advisory group. A project notification form was subsequently filed with the BPDA on May 11, 2018, which triggered a public comment period, which concluded on June 11, 2018. During the review process, the BPDA sponsored and held a public meeting and 2 impact advisory group meetings in the immediate area where the project is located to review the proposal and solicit input from members of the general public and members of the impact advisory group. In addition to these meetings, a proponent conducted additional community outreach with the local officials, area civic associations, and abutters prior to and during the Article 80 review process. Following the series of public meetings and community outreach, the proponent submitted supplemental information to the BPDA on July 3rd, 2018, which contained a revised proposal which aimed to address the concerns that were expressed during the series of meetings held prior to that. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Katie Fiedler, project designer, to further the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Raul.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Katie Fiedler. I'm with Embark Studio, the architects on the project. Just for a little context of our project, our site is located by the corner of Old Colony Ave and Dorchester Street in South Boston. Sorry. Some site context photos. Our building, the buildings that are to be demolished are the 2-story brick and stucco buildings you see in the views here, and then also a single-family residence that you see in the bottom center view. Our site, in relation to the existing plot plan. So as mentioned through the BPDA, or the Article 80 process, we've worked with the neighborhood and the BPDA to revise and develop our project. The massing responds to current and future site and neighborhood and contains ground level parking, the Notre Dame Education Center on the 2nd floor, and 49 housing units throughout the top 4 levels. This slide is showing our building in relation to the proposed Washington Village project that's currently under construction, and then that's to the left, and to the right is the existing neighborhood. So we tried to step it down respectfully in that manner to both future and current. So our building has 2 distinct entrances, one for the school and one for the residential, that maintains a dedicated circulation for each use within the building. The residential entrance is emphasized by an expanding glazing system that will run the full height of the building. The base of the building is going to be a terracotta material that will ground the lower 2 levels that are the parking and the school, and then will exceed up to the top floor. The residential levels on the top of the building are emphasized by bay projections and are clad in a light-colored oco skin specialty material, and as well as a cedar material to bring in some texture and warmth to the building. And finally, the top level of the building will step back, and as that material changes, we've changed also the material break to a darker tone of the same oco skin material. This is another slide representing our material palette of the building. You can see the 2 entrances and the residential entrance that's kind of guiding your eye towards that, towards and through into our building from the street. These are our elevations showing the same thing. Thank you.
Does that conclude your presentation?
I just, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
and members of the board, Patrick Mahoney, I'm 50% owner of the project with my business partner, Enda Madigan, in the audience. I just wanted to briefly address some of the comments that we've had since the Article 80 initial filing, and how the project has evolved throughout the community process, very briefly. We started initially, as this slide will show, it may be hard to read, but approximately 75,000 square foot proposed building. And throughout the community process, it does, and from its inception, it does comply with the Dorchester Draft Planning Initiative, including the increased affordable housing, as well as additional parks contribution and additional mitigation on top of the IAG. In addition to the public benefits with any associated development project of over 50,000 square feet, This building, part of this project was, as the building was acquired by the Notre Dame Education Center very recently, was they exercised their option in a first right of refusal to pay the same exact amount as another developer would without the school. So the school then buying it in their bank had brought myself and my business partner in to keep the school and pay that same price. So essentially with this, the additional benefit that we're providing to the community is to keep the school in its space at no cost to the school. We do understand that there's been some non-support from elected officials, and we appreciate that. A building of this size would have an impact. Again, it does meet the Dorchester Ave Planning Initiative, and although there is some opposition, there is a great deal of support as well. We have several hundred letters in support, signatures in support, and at least 60 positive comments on the record, and another additional 25 after the comment period closed. So with that, I would ask that you do grant approval. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Hearing no questions, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 14. Request authorization to terminate an affordable housing agreement and to enter into an affordable rental housing agreement and restrictions in connection with the proposed development located at 5 McBride Street and to take all related actions. Ashley.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Secretary Plemas, Director Golden, members of the board. On May 11th, 2017, this board authorized the director to enter into an affordable housing agreement with the proponent, the Ballas Group, in connection with the creation of one inclusionary development policy unit at 5 McBride Street in Jamaica Plain. The proponent has since decided to instead pursue rental units on this project, and as such, BPDA staff recommends your approval for the existing affordable housing agreement to be terminated, and that the director be authorized to enter into a new affordable rental housing agreement and restriction. As a brief summary of the proposal, the project site is located off of South Street on 2 parcels totaling 6,216 square feet. The proposal calls for the creation of an 11-unit building with 12 at-grade interior parking spaces and a 1,595 square foot commercial space facing South Street. The proposed project contains 4 2-bedroom units, 6 2-bedroom plus den units, and 1 3-bedroom plus den unit. Although the proposed project does not meet the threshold of Article 80 Small Project Review, compliance with the inclusionary development policy is required for development projects with 10 or more units. The proponent will meet the IDP requirements with the creation of 1 IDP unit and a partial unit payment of $129,000 to the IDP Special Revenue Fund. The project site is located within local convenience sub-district of the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood District and is located in a zoning district designated Article 55 Jamaica Plain District. The proponent went before the City of Boston Zoning Board of Appeal on January 24, 2017, and was granted variances from the zoning code for dimensional requirements, insufficient off-street loading, and insufficient parking. BPDA Housing Policy Manager Tim Davis and myself are happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Ashley. Item number 15. Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the Zoning Code for the construction of 12 residential units, including 2 IDP units with 12 at-grade parking spaces located at 4281 Washington Street, and to enter into an affordable rental housing agreement and restrictions, and to take all related actions. Aisling.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Corvo Development 2015 LLC has proposed the construction of a 12-unit building with 12 at-grade parking spaces on a single parcel totaling 5,750 square feet at 4281 Washington Street in Roslindale. The building will provide a mix of 9 2-bedroom units and 3 1-bedroom units. Situated within the neighborhood shopping subdistrict of the Roslindale Neighborhood District, the proposed project is governed by Article 67 of the Boston Zoning Code and required zoning variances for use, parking, and dimensional regulations. The Board of Appeals heard this case on July 25th, 2017, and zoning relief was granted, subject to BPDA design review. Although the proposed project does not meet the threshold of Article 80 Small Project Review, compliance with the inclusionary development policy is required for development projects with 10 or more units. The proponent will meet the IDP requirements in full with the creation of 2 IDP units, both of which will be made available at 70% of area median income, as based upon the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. BPDA Housing Policy Manager Tim Davis and I are happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Hearing none. A motion's in order? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Ashley. Item number 16, request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving the requirements of further review pursuant to Article 80, Section 80B-5.3D of the zoning code for the construction of an all-inclusive co-living building consisting of 250 units with 327 bedroom co-living spaces, including 43 IDP co-living spaces, with 125 on-site bicycle parking spaces located at 217 Albany Street, to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, and Madam Secretary. 217 Albany Street is an approximately 36,000 square foot site located on the corner of Herald and Albany Streets in the south end bordering Chinatown. Currently, the site is primarily service area parking, a driveway, and a vacant two-story brick building. As you know, over the last few years, National Development has constructed multiple buildings at the now very successful Ink Block site, and this parcel is seen to be the bookend to the overall development. The proposal you will see momentarily is the first of its kind in the city of Boston. Through a partnership with Ollie, National Development is proposing to introduce a co-living experience as a new typology of housing. The idea behind co-living is to have small units with hotel-style amenities and common spaces. In a moment, Mr. Ted Ty will walk you through the typical layout of these shared living spaces and the associated amenities. The proposed project is a 14-story building and totals approximately 139,000 square feet. The program calls for 250 units with a total of 327 individually leased bedrooms. 43 of those bedrooms will be created as IDP units. There is no parking associated with the project, but the proponent does have access to 175 parking spaces at Underground, the new parking area located under I-93. As you will see in the presentation, there is currently a billboard on the site which is intended to stay, but will need to be shifted, and the faces of it may possibly be separated to allow for continued visibility. To briefly recap on the Article 80 process, the project filed a PNF on April 11, 2018. The BPDA hosted an IUG meeting on May 30th and a public meeting on June 11th. The proposal was well received by the community at both the meetings. In addition, the proponents presented the proposal to the local civic associations. An extended comment period ended on June 30th. Feedback from the community and the city agencies assisted in the creation of a robust community mitigation package, which is outlined in your memo, and includes a new or expanded blue bike station, transportation improvements, and support for local community organizations. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ted Ty to begin the project presentation.
Okay, thank you, Casey.
Thank you, members of the board, Director Golden. Here for the 7th time, actually, in fairly recent years with the final building at Ink Block, and we're pleased to tell you a little bit about it. Probably most importantly, as Casey mentioned, this is a new type of housing, and we're thrilled that it really contributes to the mayor's goal of achieving over 50,000 units, and they're made up of all different types of units, and this is what we call co-housing. There will be all on-site IDP units, so we've met the threshold for affordability. There'll be well over 100 construction and permanent jobs. And part of this Ink Block community has been creating great transportation connections through the South End and South Boston, and this will do that as well. So we kind of think of this area as having 3 generations, and back in the 19th century, it was the New York streets, this great mixed-use neighborhood. It evolved in the 1950s into an industrial neighborhood, and the 21st century vision has been kind of back to where we started with this idea of a mixed-use neighborhood, although on a very different scale. That's where we are today with Ink Block, and as you can see, there were 6 buildings that have currently been constructed on site. It's active, it's a neighborhood, and in many ways it's been the catalyst for development in the area. The area that we're talking about here is right up at the top of the page here on the corner of Herald and Albany Street. And you can see it a little bit better here. And what this seventh and final building does is really fill in the block. So we've tried to make this a very pedestrian-oriented, retail-oriented, safe, walkable, and hearkening back a little bit to the New York streets with its ability to walk through and around the property. This is kind of, we think of it as the gap in the smile, the last piece to be filled in, and one that the BPDA has always had a vision of a very prominent and strong building here facing back towards the city. So that's where we are looking right here. This is Herald Street, and this is Albany Street, this is Harrison Avenue, and this is Traveler Street. So the other buildings have all opened and have opened as of the last couple of months. This fits very well with the Harrison-Albany corridor study. We were kind of the first to go out under the study, and it's been, in my experience in 30 plus years in the business, really a remarkable catalyst, this study, for really good, responsible, thoughtful development with a lot of community and business input. And we had a meeting last night in the neighborhood, talk about transportation. It's exciting to see this going in such a quick time frame. One of the things that the study looked at was height, and while most of Ink Block sits here within the 150-foot area, the area along Albany Street was seen as a taller 200-foot level, and that's where we're building, right up on this corner. And if you look at the heights of buildings being developed and that have been developed in the area, this is our proposed building here at 150 feet plus a roof structure that gets it up another 156 plus another 14 feet. But the buildings in the area, the Troy at 200, the related building at 150, recently opened 345 Harrison at 150, and the approved 321 Harrison at 150. We kind of think of this as a nice bookend and very appropriate within the height of the area. And again, the height has been very encouraged by staff. The plan on the ground is to create a strong street face at Herald and Albany, to open to the street, very importantly, not turn our back to the street, to create a nice street edge with some plantings and filling this area, to screen off what is a service area of Whole Foods primarily in the back here, and maintaining a drive-through under the building to allow trucks to egress the site. So on the ground plane, we actually have two pieces, and when you get to the upper floor, you can see where the dotted lines are. The two pieces do connect, and the grade does drop as you go from Herald down Albany. So there are opportunities to enter the building here and opportunities to enter the building further down with good opportunities for vehicular pickup and drop-off, which of course is increasingly important to us these days. This is just a little vignette of that corner and trying to activate the corner and make it feel part of the community, and again, not turn our back on it, but make it feel a complete part of the block. And you can see, just again, this is the ground plane, which has primarily back-of-house functions, which are essentially buried below grade on this side. The driveway comes through and goes out to the right, and then this is a main access to the building at a lower grade. As you move up in the co-living concept, the entire, what really is effectively the ground floor of the project, are amenity spaces, and I'll show you some photos of them, but that is, really, strong amenities are really key to the co-living concept. So we have things like areas where people can work, so co-working spaces, outdoor spaces. We have a substantial roof deck with great views back into the city. Areas of just communal living, fitness center, cooking areas. So it's really providing a lot of common area space outside of people's units, in addition to obviously giving them private apartments. There are very varied apartments, but here's an example of what a studio might look like. So, you know, on average, we have When we factor in our common area spaces, we're over 500 square feet per unit, but we have a mix of studios, one bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and 4 bedroom units. And the key to this is the convertibility of the space. Bathrooms, very much like you'd expect. The building from the exterior, again, is meant to express a very strong statement. This has been designed by Elkis Manfredi. We were really thrilled. We were in and out of the BCDC in one meeting with a very strong endorsement from them, and as you heard earlier, have received really raves from the community as well, which is what we like to hear. And this gives you a little sense as just to how it fits into the context there of what's happening in the New York streets area. So with that, I will conclude the presentation. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
Sure. What distinguishes this from a hotel?
So, and we do actually have a hotel here that we opened recently, so the last thing that we want to do is compete with a hotel. So it's a one-year lease, just like an apartment. It would be a one-year lease. So we're not really in the hospitality business. So if you think about the new Boston economy and trying to attract a large tech user to come into the city, that comes with a lot of talent and young talent who are looking for places to live. So what we try to do is provide a price point slightly below what would be market for a similar unit, but we layer on to that this great social experience. So you're part of a community within the community. We have a tremendous amount of social activities. We provide all of their furniture within their units. We provide them with services within their units. It's got the Wi-Fi, it's got the cable TV, it's all packaged together. And we create this very robust activities program for people. So the lease structure is really very similar to, it's the same as an apartment unit, but it's layering on kind of this band of services that make it a little bit different.
What distinguishes this from a hotel?
A one-year lease.
No, I understand that, but
a full
you
year,
know,
well, it's an
look, realistically, I could look at this and I could take out leases on 4 units, for example, for a year, and then lease out all of those 4 units as Airbnbs.
Actually, you could not. You could not, Mr. Landsmark. You could not. You were prohibited. You'll be prohibited, as you are in any of our other units, from subleasing. We do not allow Airbnb. We do not allow short-term leasing. We have full kitchens. I am very much in support of what the city is doing to try to curb Airbnb, because we do not want that kind of competition. We are not making investments in these buildings or in hotels to compete against Airbnb. So if you walk into this looks like an apartment. It may be small. Some of them may be smaller. It has a full kitchen. It has a full bath. It has a one-year lease. Other than that, and having extensive common areas, it is an apartment building like any other multifamily building in the city.
But it's structured so as to preclude short-term subleases.
Absolutely. And it will not be allowed. And frankly, when you're trying to do what we're doing here, which is building community, you can't build community with people who are coming and going for 2 weeks. This is building a community with people who are living here and being part of the community. So that will be prohibited as part of the lease structure in the building, as it is in every other building in Ink Block, both multifamily and condominium.
And could you just say a little bit about the accessibility of public spaces, given the location? I mean, it fronts on a major highway. So it's not exactly as though a lot of passerbys are going to wander in. But I'm curious about the accessibility of public spaces in this to the wider community. And my concern simply goes to whether the entire ink block as it is now built out becomes an island separate from the south end and separable from Southie just across the road.
Oh boy, I would tell you that is 180 degrees from what we've been trying to do. Ink block has basically formed a community there. We've created some great public spaces. In fact, the BPDA was hosted in one of them last night for a big community meeting. So we open our doors, whether it's at the hotel or our big space at One Inc., for all kinds of community events. That's part of what we do. We do a ton of charitable events up on our rooftop deck. We've hosted the Pine Street Inn, the South End Health. We have hosted more events than you would imagine because that's part of the connection. This is why we've worked so hard across the way, which I haven't talked about, on the underground project, which connects South Boston and the South End in an area that people didn't want to travel through before. We've worked so hard with BPDA staff on these cross-block connections so that people feel comfortable actually walking through the project, not around the project. So the pathways that go through kind of are reminiscent of the old New York streets if you look at it. And that's a wider plan for the South End that I know I've worked pretty closely with both BTD and BPDA on to continue that as new projects get developed in the area. So it's a rapidly developing area. What I love about the Harrison-Albany corridor study, there's a real plan to it. There's some thought behind it, and it's actually being really well executed. So we've been thrilled to be part of that.
And as this is completed, what's the total number of units that will be in the ink block itself as a whole?
So we have, let me make sure I get that right. We have 315 apartment units. We have 175 condominium units. We have 205 hotel units, and this will add 250 apartment units.
So something in excess of 700 units, not counting the hotel,
yeah,
give or take.
That's a little bit less without the hotel, yes.
Okay.
Are there any further questions?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Mr. Hyatt, I tell you, I think it's brilliant what I think you're doing. I think it's going to work. I take the GE situation where everyone was wondering where are all these people going to live. And a scenario like this, they get here for a year, they find out really where they want to live, and maybe it's next door, maybe it's town away. But I think you're going to hit that out of the park. And ink block, I tell you, I don't think anybody could have imagined what that has developed into. I go over there often in that public space and sit there with my computer, and it's just really, really nice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can you talk a little bit about how the co-housing works for the residents? Do they reserve the spaces? How do you manage the shared spaces?
So residents can come in and rent a private apartment as they would in any situation. They can come in and sign a lease and have their apartment and then participate in the community and services. We do have some residents, and this is really what Mr. Monahan was talking about, who might come in and say, I got just transferred from the Silicon Valley and I'm coming to Boston and I don't know anybody, and I'd like to be matched up and find a roommate. So within a 2-bedroom unit, for example, you can come into our leasing office and say, help me find somebody that I can live with. And we would create that situation so that you'd have 2 people who we would match together mutually if they chose, and they could share an apartment. So it's a mix. It's really a mix of both. You have the option of your typical private apartment, and you have the option, if you'd like to find somebody to be matched up to live with who you can agree that works, you can do that too. And it's a way of being social, and it's a way of also managing your costs. So, people have said, is this and we call it the 4-letter word, DORM, not close to it. It's really, we're looking for people who are in that sort of millennial plus stage who are active in the working community in Boston, who are looking for just a different housing option. It's new, it's on the edge, it's been done in other cities, and you know, working with people like Tim, you know, we've been exploring what this means to Boston and trying to be on the cutting edge, and it's been exciting.
So does every tenant get all of the services, or do you pick and choose?
No,
Is it a la carte, or it's just a one price and
one
you get
price
all?
you get everything. Yeah, we don't distinguish between what tenants get, both market tenants and affordable tenants.
Okay, great. And all the affordable tenants will get all of the same amenities?
Same deal for everybody. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess I just want to add, I mean, I've asked a couple of hard questions. I think this is a brilliant concept that's been extremely well executed.
Thank you.
And, you know, not everyone in the wider public sees what we as board members or staff see. And this was not an easy concept to pull together, obviously, in a tough area that, as you've said, not everyone wanted to go to not that long ago. And so the real question is, how does this kind of concept get replicated elsewhere in the city and the region in a way that addresses the needs of the emerging demographic of what the greater Boston area has become? I ask the questions in the hope that some folks in the media will explore this further as one of the solutions to how we build communities.
It's a great question, and I think, you know, one of the answers is we have to look at all different options, and this is clearly one of them worth looking at.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Item number 17. Request authorization to adopt a minor modification for parcel 27 located at 1000 Boylston Street and to petition the Public Improvement Commission for the discontinuance of portions of Boylston Street, St. Cecilia Street, Scotia Street, and Cambria Street. Ashley.
Thank you. Good evening again, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. On March 15th, 2018, the BPDA board voted to approve the 1000 Boylston Street project, along with the adoption of a minor modification to the Fenway Urban Renewal Plan to create parcel 27. The board vote before you this evening is another minor modification to create a larger parcel 27, comprised of portions of Boylston Street, St. Cecilia Street, Scotia Street, and Cambria Street, to be acquired by the BRA. In the opinion of the General Counsel, such proposed modification is minor and does not substantially or materially alter or change the Fenway Urban Renewal Plan. In accordance with BRA adopted policies, BPDA staff provided the Boston City Council and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development with a 30-day notice of this proposed minor modification. In order for the developer to acquire the necessary portions of Boylston Street, St. Cecilia Street, Scotia Street, and Cambria Street for the assembly of the project site, said portions must be acquired by the BRA through eminent domain and discontinued as public ways by the City of Boston Public Improvement Commission. The first step in this process is the co-petitioning of PIC for the discontinuance of the necessary portions of said streets. BPDA staff is excited to see this project move forward and recommends the approval of these actions. I am joined by members of the development team this evening and would be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Aisling. Item number 18. Request authorization to adopt a minor modification for parcel 13 and 14 and parcel E-1 respectively, located at 60 State Street, and to enter into an easement agreement to approve the construction within 10 feet of the northerly boundary, to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E6 of the zoning code for the renovation and expansion of a restaurant on the rear side, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon again, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. I am pleased to be before you this evening to introduce an exciting revitalization of the vacant space fronting Faneuil Hall on the 60 State Street building. Just to orient ourselves, The space lies parallel to Faneuil Hall, tucked to the left of these stairs here that many of us here in the BPDA travel, and in clear line of sight from the Sam Adams statue here in Faneuil Hall. 60 State has been an important piece of the government center downtown waterfront area since its construction, and given our proximity, here in City Hall, we are excited for the introduction of a Sam Adams tap room in this presently underutilized pocket of the city's most traversed locale. I'd like to introduce Ruth Silman, who represents the Boston Beer Company, to further explain this concept. Both Ruth and I will be happy to answer any questions the board may have at the conclusion of Ruth's presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aisling. Good afternoon, members of the board, Mr. Chairman, Director Golden. Thank you so much for your time. We are very excited to be here. Boston Beer is leasing from the ground tenant the former restaurant space. Used to always start with an H, Hudson's, Houston's, whatever it may have been called. Houlihan's. It was. I remember when it was Houlihan's. Yes. Hillstones, whatever the H's were. It will not be an H. And thankfully, there will be delicious beer on tap, brewed in the site. The proposal is, you can see, this is a rendering for the space to be augmented, expanded by just over 3,000 square feet, completely redesigned inside and outside, new entry, new fenestration, a new second story with an outdoor space that goes down out to the existing plaza. And so it will really activate the location and the space, both at the ground level, just across from the Sam Adams statue, as well as up on the plaza. We are requesting a number of items that come about because of the history of the project. The site is located in not only one but two urban renewal areas, and we need a minor modification. There's a little bit of a math puzzle going on here. When the tower was built and there were some renovations were done and zoning relief was granted, the property actually is two different parcels. And the very front parcel there's a little triangle, and the land area of that triangle was never included in the denominator of the FAR calculation. And so we are going to correct that with the Board of Appeal. So we are increasing the gross floor area by about 3,900 square feet, but overall the FAR is going to come down because of the addition of that additional land area. We just want to make sure it's perfectly clear and everybody is, has the right math, so that for the future this has been clarified. So we're seeking the board's support at the Board of Appeal for the zoning relief. There is also a need for building code variance due to the openings close to the property line. In terms of the minor modification to the urban renewal plans, that is also because of this math issue. The FAR is being altered. It's actually going down even though we're adding this gross floor area, but we need your approval to do that. And then we are also seeking approval of an easement plan for going up the steps connecting the plaza, kind of the back of the building, through the plaza, down the steps, and then to clarify some of the other existing easements that were originally put in place in the late 70s, but there was no plan that was ever created. And so the ground lessee has prepared a plan. We've been working very closely. I should say, by the way, Representative of Oxford are here, and we've been working very well together and jointly to make sure that all of the legal issues are addressed so that this project can proceed. We're also seeking a certification of approval because the project falls within small project review. Another item that we request approval on is in the deed from the BRA, right along this property line, there is a requirement that any construction within 10 feet of that line requires board approval from this board, so we're here seeking that as well. And then we may need to amend the LDA. We're not exactly sure yet. It doesn't look like it, but if we do, while we're here, we're seeking your approval on that. And those are the items. So happy to answer any questions or explain anything in any more detail. I would like to thank Aisling and the staff and legal counsel. There's been a lot of great work that's happened very quickly.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
Is this going to be a branded Sam Adams restaurant? What is the restaurant going to be?
It's. Do you want to? Tara Heath is here from Boston Beer Company. She can give you a little bit of that.
It will be branded Samuel Adams. There will be a small brewery actually on display in the front window that you'll be able to see where we'll be making beer that will be served in that location. It will not be a full restaurant. The idea here is to serve potential bar snacks, but we'd rather bring people to the community in the area who then go out and enjoy the rest of the retail accounts and restaurants in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
You use the term underutilized space to describe this site. And I think part of the reason that historically it's been underutilized is that people, unless they worked in City Hall or 60 State Street, barely knew that there was a restaurant up there. You couldn't really tell if you were in Faneuil Hall looking up there that there was a place that invited you to be. I think when SOM did this building initially, they did a very poor job of designing the landscape interface between what might have been a bridge over there and the lower plaza. So assuming we were to approve this, there would be an opportunity that you would have to improve the not only the accessibility to the space and the branding, which sounds about right to me, but also the visibility of the space as a real destination and not just as a plaza out the backside of 60 State Street. And so I wonder what the nature of the real landscape improvements, the wayfinding, and the like would be in order to really make this the kind of attractive space that would work for Sam Adams or whomever.
Well, Sam Adams, Boston Beer Company has, we have a lease for just the portion that is the proposed restaurant, and it will be very inviting. Much better entrances on both the plaza level as well as the ground floor level. The whole entrance is coming out right kind of to the property line, so you don't have to kind of look and figure out in the dark where the front entrance was, the way that it was, at least when it was Hillstones. In terms of the plan for the plaza, I know that that Oxford is working on that in terms of creating a real plan for that. I can't speak to that, and that's that's not part of what we're here for exactly, but staff has raised it, and BRA, in particular the BRA architects have raised that as something that they're very not just concerned with, but it is a great desire, and I think everybody has the intention to make sure that plaza is activated.
So renderings haven't yet been developed to a point where you could present those?
I will say from our perspective, from the BPDA's perspective, and to Bergmeyer and Associates and Boston Beer's credit, they've been working very hard with David Carlson, Michael Canizzo, and Jill Zick from our urban design staff. We've had conversations with property management, who has purview of that whole plaza area. I think we're all on the same page. At this point, it's working to find a balance of, as you said, developing something that's a lot more inviting will be successful, while also maintaining a lot of the pedestrian feel that's there at present. So I think we're all in collective unity. We all know the direction it's going in. Dave may be able to speak a little bit more about urban design and what they see there, but we have had many conversations. We're all working towards a common goal.
Including handicapped accessibility?
Yes, correct. I believe you have already received sign-off from accessibility, or is the state?
We actually have a variance from the MAAB for the upper portion where the stairs are, and there will be a ramp, so we've already received that.
Thank you.
I have a question. That's a real historic, important, very dignified statue that's out there. How are you going to maintain that? By installing a beer garden?
Well, it's not I wouldn't characterize the space as a beer garden. I mean, the design of the restaurant is actually using many of the elements of the statue, and Bergmeyer has done a terrific job to try to incorporate those. It's a very refined look, and has been through much scrutiny.
I just feel, it's an important part of Boston's history, and we need to maintain that dignity that's deserving of that statue and this gentleman. And I hope we don't forget that when we're doing this,
So,
You don't have to,
You don't-
she answered my question. Okay, are there any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 19, request authorization to issue a partial certificate of completion for the dwelling units located in Garrison, Trotter, Phase 2 project located on parcels A-2C, J-5B1, L-54, L-55, and J-5B-2. Gary.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board. This action is being taken today to provide for the ability to have units that have completed construction and have corresponding certificates to close on financing with prospective buyers. This is Garrison Trotter Phase 2, part of the Department of Neighborhood Development's Neighborhood Homes Initiative.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
We're going to delay item number 20 until 5:30, and we're going to delay item number 21 until 5:40. And I'm going to go into item number 22, request authorization to expend $5,000 from the Harvard Alston Public Realm Flexible Fund to Gregory Gomez, an artist and a team of artists led by Julian Weidenmeyer, and to enter into grant agreements. Gerald, help me out there.
Good afternoon. Your guess is as good as mine, actually, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the board. You have previously approved expenditures from the Harvard Alston Public Realm Flexible Fund. We've done 2 rounds of financing to a number of worthwhile public realm improvement projects in Alston, as well as a major grant to Smith Field. We received in the first round a number of applications for public art, and it was clear to us that we needed to have a special procedure in place for soliciting, commissioning, reviewing public art, not just as part of the regular application process. So we did that. We worked with the Boston Art Commission. We developed a request for qualifications, which we released this spring, that identified a couple of private properties. This is for public realm improvements, but these are private properties that present nice big walls that serve as canvases for public art that will be visible to everyone and accessible to everyone, so we consider it improvements to the public realm. We got 27 responses, and the executive committee met and came to a consensus that I never would have predicted, but a consensus about 2 of the teams that we thought had particularly compelling qualifications and visions. And we would like to proceed by giving each of those teams a modest stipend, probably not $2,500 each, probably less than that, but I wanted to request a little more just in case, so that they can develop more complete proposals for how they would use the space, and then we will select one of them and commission a piece of art, working again with the Boston Art Commission, some experts who are advising us, and the property owners and larger community, of course. The nice thing is that we have identified a pool of good artists who, even if they are not selected for this particular location, we can tap into and commission art for other locations as we identify suitable places around the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. Are there any questions from the board?
Are you prepared to be bold with the final selection?
I am certainly prepared to be bold. I am one of 8 committee members, and we have property owners who will also have a say about what happens on their buildings. So This is partly about kind of getting our feet wet with learning how to do this, and to the extent that there's room for a bolder vision in the future, we would hope to identify additional sites in the neighborhood and work with these or other artists to do something even bolder.
Yeah, we do have some groups in the greater Boston area that have done this kind of work nationally, and we hold ourselves out to be a very innovative city. But our public art has tended to be insipid at best.
Yeah.
And I would strongly encourage you in this group to think about who will live here and want to be inspired by our public art into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. This is meant to, and I don't know if you've seen a copy of the RFQ. I'm happy to leave one with you if you're interested. But this is meant to really enliven a key gateway into the neighborhood. It needs to serve a number of different functions, and it needs to please a number of different constituencies. But the intent is to do something interesting, eye-catching, bold, different, as well as hopefully informative. This is an interesting neighborhood and an interesting part of the neighborhood, and we want to celebrate that.
Okay, if there's no further questions, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you.
Item number 23, contractual. We need a motion to pay the bills.
We pay our bills.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Pay the bills. Ayes have it. Item number 24, personnel. Jeanette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. We have one appointment for your consideration with details listed in the board memos. Christopher Breen, Special Project Manager in the Director's Office, starting August 6th. For your consideration, we have 3 promotions adjustments as part of the 2018 performance management process, with details listed in the board memos. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And we're going to take a brief recess. We can't start the, hold on a second. We can't start the public hearings until 5:30, so we'll come back to then.
I have a prior commitment for 1 minute.
No, no.
Maybe 1 minute?
I'm sorry, I can't. We can't do that.
Not even 1 minute?
What did you want to speak on?
Well, I'm on a number of housing boards because I'm.
Which item did you want to speak on?
I want to speak to the way that the zoning and planning and the process of the way the tenants are chosen, the way the development.
Yeah, you're gonna have to hold off. We'll hold off on that. We'll hold off. We're gonna have to hold off. We'll see you at 5:30 when we start the hearings.
But I have a prior commitment.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Still working on it. Thank you.
This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with the Massachusetts General Laws 121A and the Acts of 1960, Chapter 652, both as amended, to consider the application for Trinity Orient Heights Phase 2 Limited Partnership to the Boston Planning and Development Agency for authorization and approval of a project under Chapter 121A of the General Laws and Acts of 1960, Chapter 652, both as amended, in connection with Phase 2 of Orient Heights development in the East Boston. The hearing was duly advertised on June 28, 2018 in the Boston Herald. In a Boston Planning and Development Agency hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so, again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of brief rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Raul will now go on with the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director, don't see the Director there, Madam Secretary, members of the Board. The item before you this afternoon is the revised Orient Heights redevelopment project in the Orient Heights section of East Boston. The project site consists of approximately 15 acres of land and is the site of the Boston Housing Authority-owned Orient Heights Public Housing Development, which includes, or up until recently, included 331 public housing units. By way of background, the first iteration of the overall project was approved by this board in August of 2016. At that time, the proposal included the demolition of the existing 331 public housing units and the construction of 373 units, 331 of which would be replacement units and 42 non-public housing units in a mix of townhouse and mid-rise buildings, a new public open space, 306 vehicle parking spaces, and a variety of public realm improvements, including a new road connecting Waldemar Ave and Valor Road. Since the time of the initial approval, Phase 1 of the overall project was recently completed and included 120 replacement public housing units. The proposed changes to the originally approved project that you will be hearing more details on shortly focus on the future phases of the overall project. The changes include the elimination of the 42 non-public housing units, the elimination of vehicle parking spaces to coincide with the less units, the creation of additional open space, the renovation instead of demolition of the existing community center, the elimination of the road connecting Waldemar Ave and Valor Road, and the anticipated completion of the overall project in 3 phases instead of 4. The public hearing that we're holding now is specifically in regards to the Chapter 121A application for Phase 2 of the revised project that was submitted to the BPDA on April 26, 2018. Phase 2 of the revised project includes the redevelopment of approximately 122,000 square feet of the overall site and will consist of the demolition of 4 structures and the construction of 88 replacement units in a combination of townhouses and mid-rise buildings. Future phases of the revised master project will apply for 121A approval as applicable and as financing becomes available. At this time, I would like to introduce you to Eva Ehrlich, Vice President of Development for Trinity Financial, to introduce the team and further the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Eva Ehrlich from Trinity Financial. I am joined here this evening with members of our development team, with our partners at the Boston Housing Authority, and with several members of our local tenant organization at Orient Heights. We're excited to be here this evening to discuss the Orient Heights redevelopment in East Boston, which, as Raul mentioned, is already underway. I'm actually going to now turn it over to Nancy Ludwig from Icon Architecture to walk you through a brief presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board. We're here to talk about the creation of 331 affordable housing units, 238 construction jobs, and 331 bicycle spaces. The locus area is Orient Heights, which is on the north side of the hill, sort of looking out over Suffolk Downs. Here, an axon shows you I'm north looking back, but you understand that this hillside has amazing views at the top of the hill back to the city. This is what the development looked like when we started Phase 1. Built in the 1950s, obsolete housing that had really carved into a sloping hillside and did not have a very conducive environment to being outdoors and enjoying life here. We've now completed the first 120 units. You see photographs of them here underway, a mix of townhouses and flats and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom apartments. Tonight, though, we're here to talk about a modest change to our original master plan, which reduces the unit count from 373 down to 331 units and accomplishes the same parking ratio that we had before. The change in the plan has actually allowed us to expand the community facilities, which include both new open space that we'll be building as a part of our Phase 2, almost doubling the amount of landscaped open space that we had in the original master plan. And we intend now to keep the existing community center and modernize it. It's been really the heart and soul of this development, and we think it's an important part of the community. We're eliminating a connection that we envisioned for Valor Road. It became very difficult to make on the steeply sloping hillside, but we have improved the cul-de-sac at Valor Road so it will accommodate fire trucks and enhance traffic. And we will redesign Valor Road to meet the complete street standards. This is what we had approved in 2016. You see a certain density to the plan. And today we're showing you this plan, which doubles the open space, creates new community space as part of Phase 2, renovates the existing community center and creates a new gateway park, and really opens up views to and around the site. Here's an axonometric view that shows on the left where we were at in Phase 1. You notice a fairly dense mid-rise with the former unit count. And on the right, you see how we've been able to really pull the scale of that building down up on Faywood. The existing community center is at the center of the site, and you see the amount of recreational open space we've created around that. Here's a view now down on the lower street against our Phase 1 along Waldemar Ave, where we're creating some passive recreation as well as a basketball court. I've now come up to Valor Road, and you're seeing a plaza against the community center that we're creating in Phase 2. I've stepped out to the entry to the development, and you see the broad open space that we'll be creating as Gateway Park. We've not designed it. We intend to work with community to program it and to come up with both passive and recreational opportunities here. Here is our Phase 2 mid-rise that we hope to start construction in the fall. The other end of it, where I've talked about enhancing the cul-de-sac, that is the end of Valor Road with landscaping and a broad enough parking and paving area that fire trucks can negotiate the turn. And now I've come up onto the improved Valor Road, where we're taking a lot that we learned from Phase 1 in terms of individual entries into townhouses, stoops, landscaping, and bringing them up to the second phase of the development. I now want to introduce David Linhart from Goulston and Stores, who will talk about the 121A.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you. David Linhart with Goulston and Stores, Council for our Development Team. And we just wanted to use this slide to talk about the zoning relief versus the approval for the whole project through Article 80. So there's the impact review that and the NPC is with respect to the entire development, but we're doing the zoning relief phase by phase through 121A. So we did a 121A application with deviations for Phase 1, and there's a very similar application we did for Phase 2, a very similar relief, and then as the future phases come online, we'll then do 121A applications for each of those with deviations, and we're also working with assessing to finalize the 6A contract, so that's in motion. And we have a final slide just to bring back to benefits of the project, and really it captures what we're delivering, very consistent with what we originally set out to deliver with the master project, with some natural evolution as the phases have rolled out. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Raul, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
So we're going to go into the public comment period now, and we're going to ask people if anyone wants to speak in favor of this Orient Heights project, please step up to the microphone, state your name. Anyone that wants to speak in favor of this Orient Heights development project, please step right up.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Beckles. I'm a resident of Orient Heights, as well as a member of the local tenant organization. Back in 2016, Governor Charlie Baker said, "Every resident in Massachusetts deserves the opportunity to live in housing that is safe, affordable, and modern." And the first phase of the redevelopment of Orient Heights is an important step forward for this community's residents. Since then, the first phase of 120 homes have been built. Families began moving back home earlier this spring. The public partners, private lenders, and development team have been committed to this community, working with the local tenant organization, residents, and surrounding neighbors to plan and build beautiful and new healthy homes. In addition, the first phase included a significant increase of open green space, which will carry through to the second and third phases, including indoor and outdoor community space in phase 2 and 3, and a centrally located public park. As with the rest of the city, the neighborhood of East Boston continues to attract development of multi-family housing. Once fully built, the master development will build back 331 units of affordable housing, an essential pillar to the city of Boston. In closing, as a resident, I support the change of the master plan that were filed and will be or have been described in the presentation this evening, as well as phase 221A. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board, Gary Walker, Electricians Local 103, I'd like to speak in strong support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good afternoon. John Cusack from the New England Carpenters, and I'd like to speak in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition for this Orient Heights development? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none, are there any questions from the board?
I have a question about the terms of the 121A tax, the changes in the terms of the tax reductions. Can you please talk about that?
Well, if maybe there's a specific question we could address about that, I could say that it's consistent with what we did for phase 1. So, in fact, it's very much built off of the phase 1 form that's already been completed, and we use that for each of the phases going forward.
Oh, okay. It's not a change. It's not
No.
changing.
It's not changing.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions? No further questions, and a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, this is item number 21. This is a public hearing before the development plan for Planned Development Area number 114, Shawmut Ave, Washington Street project, which was scheduled to be held on June 14, 2018 at 5:50 p.m. After which I move that the board voted to table the proposed actions for further consideration. At this time, I move to take from the table the proposed actions for considerations and to hold a public hearing. And just before I begin, I'd like to say that this... Oh, we need a motion, okay. So we need a motion, a motion to move this back onto the table.
I move we move this project back onto our agenda.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, okay. I just want to say if, get everyone in that wants to testify. And if people could be patient, this is going to be translated, so we're going to move a little slowly. Want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to be heard. So we're going to close the door and let us begin this. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code. Proposed development plan for Planned Development Area Number 114, Shawmut Avenue, Washington Street, in the South End neighborhood of Boston. This hearing was duly advertised on June 28, 2018 in the Boston Herald. In a Boston Planning and Development Agency hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of brief rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Casey Hines will now proceed with the presentation. Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, and Madam Secretary. The Washington Street and Shawmut Avenue Block Project and associated PDA contain approximately 82,557 square feet of land and is comprised of 3 separate lots located at 112 Shawmut Ave, 50 Herald Street, and 120 Shawmut Ave in the South End. The proposed project includes 3 buildings, which will be built in phases by 3 separate proponents, which include the Davis Companies, the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association of New England, and the Boston Chinese Evangelical Church. In total, the nearly $500 million mixed-use project will include a maximum of 660,456 square feet and will be comprised of approximately 536 residential units, together with retail, religious sanctuaries, and community uses. The unique partnership between this private developer and 2 nonprofits has resulted in numerous benefits as a result of the PDA. First and foremost, the PDA requires 20% of the units be designated as IDP units, all located on the project site. In addition, the PDA ensures that 20% of the site be designated and built to ensure public access or enhance the public realm. The proposal before you tonight not only meets but strives to exceed both of these requirements. Each of these buildings' specific programming will be broken down momentarily in the presentation. To briefly recap the Article 80 process, the Davis Companies filed a project notification form on August 29, 2017, and together with the BCEC and CCBA, 2 subsequent supplemental information reports were filed on September 28, 2017 and March 13, 2018. The associated development plan was filed on November 17, 2017. Throughout a robust community process, 4 impact advisory group meetings were held on October 4, 2017, April 30th, June 4th, and June 27, 2018. Public meetings were held on October 11, 2017 and May 2, 2018. The final comment period concluded on May 11, 2018. The proponents have committed to a community benefit contribution totaling $200,000 to be determined in collaboration with the IAG and the BPDA and finalized in the cooperation agreement. At this time, I'd like to introduce Brian Fallon from the Davis Companies to begin the project presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Secretary Polhemus. My name is Brian Fallon, and I'm the president of the TDC Development Group, which is the development arm of the Davis Companies. The Davis Companies is one of the 3 proponents of the Washington Shawmut project, which is comprised of 3 buildings to be built by each of the 3 proponents on almost 2 acres of land in the northernmost portion of the South End neighborhood, bounded by Herald Street to the north, Shawmut Avenue to the west, and Washington Street to the east. The second proponent of the project is the Boston Chinese Evangelical Church, and with us here today is Pastor Stephen Chin, the senior pastor of BCEC. He's in the front row, and he can identify himself now. There you go. Pastor Chin. The third proponent of this project is the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association of New England, a Chinatown-based nonprofit organization. With us here today is CCBA's current president, Paul Chan. Also, first, some background on these three organizations. The three proponents that I just mentioned. TDC is the Davis Companies. TDC is a Boston-based real estate development and investment and management company founded 42 years ago by our CEO, Jonathan Davis. We've developed or rehabilitated over 6 million square feet of properties throughout the United States, are now in the fund business also throughout the U.S. Some Boston projects you may be familiar with include the Charles Street Plaza mixed-use project with Mass General Hospital on Cambridge Street in the West End neighborhood, and the Telford 180 condominium project in the Alston neighborhood. After this board approved it, TDC has just recently commenced construction of the $555 million Omni Boston Hotel in the Seaport District, and we will be seeking to launch our East Boston development later this summer. BCEC, Boston Chinese Evangelical Church, was founded in 1961, serves over 1,200 congregants, comprises the largest Asian American congregation in New England. Also provides 7 worship services in 3 different languages at 3 different locations, 2 of which are in Chinatown. Also provides a range of educational, recreational, and social service programs, including ESL language classes in Chinatown. BCEC also owns 4 properties, 3 of which are also in Chinatown. CCBA was founded in 1923. Its mission is to serve and unite the Chinese American community, promote and preserve. Somebody else is supposed to be working this, I apologize. Mission is to serve and unite the Chinese American community, promote and preserve the Chinese culture and traditions, and serve as a coordinating body for Chinatown generally. CCBA sponsors Chinatown's annual lunar activities, New Year festivities, and August Moon festivities. CCBA also owns and operates 2 affordable housing developments in Chinatown, Waterfront Place and the Taitung Village, with a total of 254 apartments. Washington Shawmut project evolved out of a series of conversations among the 3 proponents about how we could collaborate to plan for redevelopment of each of our lots, and through coordinated urban design while achieving building programs that address each of our distinct needs. The area in which our project is located was included in the multi-year Harrison Avenue, Albany Street corridor planning process overseen by the BPDA, culminating in the BPDA's adoption of the Harrison Avenue, Albany Street Strategic Plan in 2012. Our project has been designed to comply strictly with the zoning regulations that were enacted by the city and BPDA following that long community-based planning process. Our plan will result in the creation of approximately 536 residential units, approximately 600 construction jobs, approximately 70 permanent jobs, and approximately 139 affordable housing units in an area of the city that has great access to public transportation, jobs, parks, supermarkets, and other public amenities. Casey has already summarized. I will not repeat the filings associated with Article 80. We also successfully went through a BCDC, Boston Civic Design Commission process with the assistance of the BPDA staff. I'm going to condense this, turn it over to Michael Liu. I do want to thank, however, Casey, John Greeley, Michael Christopher, Michael Canizzo, and David Carlson for their help on what has been a multi-year process working with the staff. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Michael Liu to walk you through the design process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Could you stand up by that microphone?
Members of the board, Director Golden, I'm Michael Liu. I'm a partner with a firm called the Architectural Team. We're the master planners for the Washington Street block, and also the architects for one of the constituent parcels, the Davis Company's parcels at 112 Shawmut. So this is the site location in red, and as you can see, it is bounded by Shawmut, Herald, and Washington. It's a very visible site from the Massachusetts Turnpike to on the northern edge of the site. And it is, as Brian was describing, in the New York Streets portion of the Harrison-Albany corridor strategic plan. The area in general, as you're familiar with, is, except for those newer projects, is occupied by a lot of relatively undistinguished 1970s era type of buildings, unlike the rest of the South End, which is, has a lot of historic buildings. But one exception actually is on the Davis parcel, the 112 Shawmut, which is occupied by a building which is a kind of a local iconic piece of architecture, which as part of the Davis plan would be renovated and incorporated with new construction into their proposal for 139 units. And that is located on the corner of Shawmut and Herald Street. On the other corner of Herald and Washington Street is the CCBA site. That's presently occupied by a one-story commercial building, which is a supermarket, the C-Mart. The CCBA development plan would be to replace that with a long-anticipated affordable housing project of upwards of 313 units, but also incorporate about 14,600 or so square feet of commercial space, which could be a place for which the supermarket could return at such time as the building is completed. The third component parcel is the BCEC site, the church site. That's located on Shawmut Street between the Davis parcel and the newly completed Lucas. The BCEC site was originally a skilled nursing facility, which the church bought and is using to operate their programs out of. And if you know anything about skilled nursing facilities, they're hospitals. It's really ill-suited to the kinds of programs and community service programs that the church provides. So their plan would be to replace it with a new construction of 11 stories. All three parcels would be no more than 150 feet in height. The first two, the Davis parcel and the CCBA building, were 13 stories. The BCEC building, because it has a different programmatic uses that require taller floor-to-floor heights, would be 11 stories. None of them would exceed 150 feet in height. Here we see a site plan of the Washington block. And in terms of programmatic aspirations, the New York Streets and Harrison-Albany strategic corridor plan seek to break up the existing super blocks. And this particular block is 1,000 feet long. It's a very long block. To break them up into smaller blocks to create pedestrian connections. And through the cooperation of the three separate discrete landowners, that's able to be accomplished. There's a new east-west pedestrian corridor. There's a north-south corridor. Another aspiration of the strategic plan is to create sort of places within that. And here we're able, with the cooperation of the three proponents, to create a major interior space in the middle, landscaped interior space, which would be part of that new public way in the north-south axis. Another aspiration of the strategic plan is to create a retail corridor along Washington Street, and the CCBA site incorporates that commercial space, which would have its entrances. As you can see from the sort of indications of entrances along the sidewalks, those would be a variety of different kinds of residential entrances, commercial entrances, and by spreading them around the periphery, enliven the sidewalk and try to start replicating that kind of lively pedestrian experience that is in the rest of the other parts of the South End. And this diagram shows the subject site, which is in that northwest corner, as part of the wider plan and how it fits in. And you can see, maybe you can't see, that east-west corridor is here, and it continues beyond the site all the way to the ink block. So from the ink block all the way to Shawmut would be an uninterrupted pedestrian way and an uninterrupted vista, which on our particular site we would seek to enhance with landscaping to make it an inviting pedestrian experience. And these are some views of that particular corridor. This is the east-west pedestrian walkway that I was just identifying in the master plan, looking from Shawmut back towards Washington Street. So it's in an informal way right now. There's a lot of cutting across lots to get from Shawmut back to Washington Street. Now we would have a really enhanced, safe, well-lighted, landscaped pedestrian way to do that. And this is a view looking in the other direction from Washington back to Shawmut. In earlier plans, you might notice in these graphics there's a note saying that this is subject to building code variance. What that's a reference to is that in order to meet the BCEC program, there would be a cantilever at an upper floor to get the square footage. But with a routine variance, we could push that back to have a unified facade plane along the right-hand side, and the variance would be required because on the other side we'd get a little close to the interior property line. That's a very routine variance, and we don't see an obstacle in obtaining it. These are views of the aerial views of the collected buildings. You can see in the foreground, this is the 112 Shawmut. The BCEC building, the church building, is next to it. That also, incidentally, in their proposed program incorporates some residential, which you see on upper floors, and behind it is the CCBA. The idea here is that the ensemble of buildings and their massing hang together as overall massing and create that ground plane open space and throughways. But because they each would have distinct programs, the architectural character could be different, which is part of what makes, I think, city buildings interesting. You get a variety and is different from the sort of previous sort of super block approach where you might have a uniform approach to the architecture for a whole block. This way we can create some additional architectural richness within the format of a cohesive overall master plan massing approach. And with that, I will give the floor back to Brian to take you through some of the programmatic metrics.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think that concludes the presentation, so we can open up for questions.
Okay, thank you, Casey. I'm going to go into the public hearing portion of this now, but I want to remind people, there's an awful lot of people in here that want to be heard, and please limit your comments to 2 minutes, and keep in mind that it is being translated, so we want to make sure we give the opportunity to the translator to get everything said. So is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Please step up, state your name. Anyone that would like to speak in favor of the proposal?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the members. My name is Juan Jaramillo. I work for State Senator Joe Boncory, Chairman on the Senate Housing Committee. He couldn't be here today, unfortunately. He's still on the Senate floor. We're taking up a environmental bond bill, but he wanted to send his 2 cents on this property. He has seen firsthand, I think, the need for housing production, in particular affordable housing production in the city of Boston as it grows and booms. It's been one of the biggest challenges that our city is facing. He happens to represent this part of, this is part of his district as well, and he just wanted me to express his support for this proposal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, I also have a letter that he sent to Director Golden. But
Please
I
give
have one for everyone.
Give it to our secretary, and we'll include it in the record. Thank you.
Chairman Burke, Director Golden, members of the board, James Chan, representing Chinese Merchants Association, located in 20 Hudson Street. Wish to go on record in support and respectfully ask the board to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Chairman, member of the board, my name is Manho Chan. I'm the Vice Commander of American Legion, Chinatown Post 328. I'm representing our posts, of which many of them have tied to Chinatown and the South End community. I grew up in China and South End. After I served my country during the Vietnam War, I returned to Boston and wanted to settle back down here in Chinatown area. Back then, there weren't many affordable housing or any housing in the neighborhood, so I ended up living outside the community. Today, some of our young post member from Chinatown returned home from the Gulf War and also end up in the same situation as I did back then. There is no affordable housing in Chinatown area. This project at 50 Harold Street will create much needed affordable housing, open space, and other for this neighborhood and our community. American Legion and I fully support the Shawmut, Washington block project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Mr. Chairman and a member of the board, my name is Felix Louis. I'm the coordinator of Chinatown South Cove Neighborhood Council. We have 21 council members. We are elected by the general public in Chinatown. Our council is voted and support the development because of the affordable housing and will make the area much better for the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Chairman, members of the board, my name is Paula Yi Chan, and I represent the Yi Family Association of Boston's Chinatown, an association of which most families are connected to Chinatown and the South End. I'm here to give my full support for the Shawmut Avenue, Washington Street block project. It would impact and benefit these families immensely to be able to give them affordable housing within walking distance to Chinatown, where they work, school, and socialize. Rents in Boston's Chinatown are not affordable to many families in the community. I know of some families who need to share an apartment because of their inability to pay the full rents in Chinatown. With the geographic location of this project and its proximity to Chinatown, and with a shortage of affordable housing in Chinatown, it only makes sense to develop this project and have it benefit the Chinatown/South End communities. Being an active member in this community, I've known CCBA, BCEC, and TDC for many years, and I wholeheartedly support their quest to move forward with this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board, my name is Robert Huey. I represent Boston Chinese Evangelical Church, which has over 1,200 members, many of whom are connected to Chinatown and the South End community, and I support the Shawmut, Washington block project. I've been involved in this community since the early 60s as I grew up down the street at 242 Shawmut Ave. I attended and graduated from the Boston Public Schools, and as a matter of fact, next year I'm starting my 25th year teaching just a few blocks away at Boston Latin Academy as a chemistry teacher, a class advisor, coach, and the athletic director there. Since the early 70s, I've been attending church at BCEC. There was Sunday school and summer programs offered for the youth in the city. There were also pastors as well as youth counselors to help us feel a sense of belonging in our community and church. I began my love for participating in sports through the summer volleyball, basketball ministries, which were made available to the youth of Boston through this church. I attribute my spiritual and moral growth as a Christian to the ministries and teaching provided by BCEC, as I grew up here in the community. The Shawmut Washington Block Project will provide expansion of BCEC's continuing community programs to youth, college students, adults, families, elderly, and new immigrants. In addition, the project will also create much needed affordable housing in the neighborhood. This project will create new community space, open space, and even an updated grocery store to serve the Chinatown South End communities. But most importantly to me, besides the residential and commercial opportunities, is that there will be a much greater potential to foster relationships, help people, and make connections, which are essential to make a neighborhood a home. These are the reasons why I support the Shawmut Washington Block Project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ruth Moy, and I'm Executive Director of the Greater Boston Chinese Golden Age Center. I work closely with the City of Boston's Commission on Elderly to serve the residents of Chinatown and the South End with many services. In addition to that, we are working now with the city on making Boston age-friendly and advocating for housing. And so for that reason, I think this project is very exciting, and it will add to the housing stock and provide more affordable housing for units for the community. I support this project. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, member of the board. My name is Teresa Choi, and is the co-chair of Chinatown Business Association. Our members or business entities and Chinatown associations, and we all support this Shawmut Washington project. We believe this project will bring more business to Chinatown and the community, and also with the open spaces, update stores, and also will benefit the community and the South End. I urge the committee to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and the board of member of the board. My name is Edward Chang. I'm a chairman of Chinese Economic Development Council, CEDC. Our mission is to develop low-income housing and low rent office space. We serve in Chinatown for 40 years. And we really strongly support this project because that's what create more low-income housing for our community. As you know, our community really need more affordable housing and even marketed housing. Recently, about 2 years ago, we just completed a 67-unit low-income housing and rented out immediately. And we're trying to maintain as much as low-income housing permanently in the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Good evening, dear board and all the members. My name is Fong Chung, the property manager at Taitung Village Apartment. This property is the largest affordable Section 8 project-based housing in the Boston Chinatown area, consisting of 214 units, residential units, in the Boston Chinatown area. The owner of the building is CCBA. Taitung Village Apartments currently having 377 applicants on the waiting list, giving an average of 3 to 4 unit vacancy every single year. It will take about 94 years to satisfy all the applicants on the waiting list. Right now, we still have a whole bunch of applicants that on hand that submit their application since 1998, and they are still waiting to be housed. Every single day, we receive so many incoming phone calls looking for affordable housing applications that we don't have to give. By all means, this is a good evidence and a huge high demand out there for affordable housing for the neighborhood in Chinatown. I strongly support the Shawmut and Washington Block project. This project will give more affordable housing for low-income families in the community. We need more space for the community, and this project also create a lot of job opportunity for the community. So I'm here fully support that. Please consider, and we all need to work together to make this project happen, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, member of the board member. My name is Pasang Roma. I'm the Executive Director of American Chinese Christian Educational and Social Services. We provide educational and social services to Chinese low-income families in Chinatown and 244 Harrison Avenue. I'm here to fully support this project because I not only see they provide affordable housing for low-income families, job opportunities, I also see, especially BCC, they will provide more open space for the community, also collaboration with community-based nonprofit and partnership with them to provide more beneficial social services, especially target youth and elders, all those social services training program. So also I will see this project also will change living environment, improve social infrastructure in Boston City and in South End community. And also we will see BCC in the future, they also have a plan to have a community center and can reach more people in neighborhood. So I really see huge beneficial from this project for local community. So I'm here to fully support this project. So I ask a favor to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Javon Yu, and I'm a young professional who lives in Chinatown, and I work in downtown Boston as well. I've attended Boston Chinese Evangelical Church for almost the entirety of my life, and it has in many ways contributed to the development of who I am today. I've formed many deep friendships through the church, and I've had various counselors and teachers guide and mentor me in various ways over the years growing up. As an active member of the church, I have been involved with and have seen the impact that it has in the Chinatown community. This has been accomplished through the various ministries like ESL classes and the middle school summer camp. After graduating college, I intentionally decided to live in Chinatown so I could be more closely involved and serve the community. I'm a counselor at the after-school program, and I actually leave work twice a week early so that I can be involved and helping with the programs, providing homework help and mentoring to the students. On Friday nights, I'm also a regular counselor at the church's youth fellowship. And through these opportunities to interact with youth, I have developed many friendships with them and have a unique ability to be involved in their lives and care for them throughout the week. Space has always been a limiting factor in the ways that the church runs much of its programming and ministries across multiple buildings. Even with the difficulties, I've seen the sacrifices of many faithful volunteers who have that they've made to serve one another in the community. As a result, I fully support this project, and I see it as an opportunity for the greater good that can be done in the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Burke and the board members. I'm Jenny Louie, representing Chihao Oak Teen Association in Boston. Our association is one of the biggest family associations in Boston with over 2,000 members. Most of our members and their families are living in Chinatown and South End neighborhoods. We strongly support and welcome the Shawmut Street, Washington Street Block project, for it will provide us more affordable housing and more job opportunities. Thank you for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board, once again, Gary Walker, Electricians Local 103, I'd like to speak in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon to the chair and the board. My name is John Cusack, and I'm a representative of the New England Regional Council of Carpenters, and I'd like to offer my support for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. My name is Mary Chin. I'm the Executive Director of the Asian American Civic Association. We are an agency that is known for quality workforce training employment services, and accelerated ESOL for all immigrants. As you can tell by the outpouring of support tonight from every sector of our large community, affordable housing is a requirement for us to continue as a community. We have heard testimony today about the fact that there just isn't enough. And we need to ask you to consider that this project is the answer at this moment for the affordable housing crisis that we have in this community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Carl Lau. I'm an active member of BCEC. I was an immigrant kid that came to Boston, growing up learning English and pretty much be a typical immigrant kid that went through the Boston school system, lived in Boston, and also growing up at the church. So church was essential for me to adapt to the way of Boston. Having that community space, having affordable housing, and having a community center that would be impactful for immigrant kids, for any kids growing up. So I fully support the project, and I would urge your approval as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Anyone that would like to speak in favor? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Please step right up, sir. State your name and remember the 2-minute rule we have.
Thank you. My name is Tom Hemness. I'm an immigrant too, from Belmont, not quite as far away, and we're in a butter. I'm one of the people who lives in the Lucas, and in fact our unit overlooks the church property. And let me say as an aside, we've met many of the people in the church, and we have nothing but admiration for their activities. I think it's really remarkable what they've done. We do oppose this project though, and the reason we oppose it is for several reasons. One, we think that the community benefits that have been described are speculative. All of the affordable housing would be in units other than the Davis property unit. And for example, the C-Mart, which is on one of the properties, has a 7-year lease. And for all we know, it would be 7 years before you would have any affordable housing on that property. Secondly, we think that the massing of these buildings is inconsistent with the neighborhood. For us, of all the people who have spoken, I think we may be the only actual direct abutters, and it would create a huge wall exactly opposite our building, which I think would not be to the advantage either of us who are in the building or to the people who would be facing us across. I mean, our bedroom would face their bedrooms, which we think would be very undesirable. That has not been addressed, we think. And lastly, we have tried very, very hard in communications with the proponents to come up with a better plan. And so far we found that they have really not made changes that could have been made that would have been much more effective in addressing the community's concerns. So for all those reasons, we do oppose it, although let me say we encourage development, and we have nothing but admiration, particularly for the church, but also for the interest in having affordable housing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, member of the board and Director Golden. My name is Karen Chen. I'm the Executive Director of the Chinese Progressive Association. We have a membership of about 1,200. And in the last several years, we have helped hundreds of tenants face the risk of displacement in Chinatown. Without doubt, I think, the testimony of the proponents also said that, there's a housing affordability crisis in Chinatown, like many of the neighborhoods in Boston. And I would like to point out several concerns that we have about this project. One is that, as stated in the Chinatown master plan and many of the conversations in Chinatown, we see 50 Harrow Street as one of the key sites to build affordable housing and remain in the neighborhood. I think that's shared with many of the proponents of this project. That's something that we care about deeply. Real affordable housing to keep residents in the neighborhood. We also support the consolidation of the church's services in this site. While these are positive things for the community, we are concerned that this project provides about 30% affordable housing. We have concerns about whether or not this is a fair trade-off to give a PDA for. Outlining a few things in terms of affordability, most people in the community really can afford at the 30% area median income. And secondly, we're concerned that the Davis Company gets developed first. The parts that benefit the community most, which is the CCBA site and the BCEC site, is much, much later. And will we be able to address the housing crisis if this is developed in that order? In conclusion, we feel like the PDA is not a fair trade-off for the community. For a city like Boston, we want to be a vibrant city, a world-class city. We want a city that not just to be left with beautiful buildings and architectures. We must protect the people who built the city and the most vulnerable, and that we ought to be able to set higher standards for developers. And in decades before this, variances were handed out without careful consideration whether or not there are significant community benefits. I ask that the board to make these considerations. While there's benefits, we also look at the long-term impact of the community. And while the community members here with the headsets, they may not understand the intricacy of development, but we're all concerned about the future of this community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening, BRA Director and board members. My name is Deborah Backus, Executive Director of the Castle Square Tenants Organization, a direct abutter of 112 Shawmut Ave, Washington Street proposed PDA. We have vague concerns, vast concerns regarding this project. The PDA, which bundles 3 unrelated buildings at different stages of the development, was designed to circumvent zoning laws and other key requirements, is not subject to the BPDA action. TDC is clearly driving this process. They have artificially combined to meet the 1 acre minimum required for a BPDA action. Alone, not one of the buildings would be approved without a zoning variance. We do not agree with this massive project on this site. Despite being key components for approval, the CCBA and the BCEC buildings may never be built. In 1983, parcels were swapped between Chinatown. Over to 4 parcels went to Tufts University, and 1 parcel was to go for affordable housing. Over 35 years, CCBA failed to develop the housing on this parcel and instead decided to reap the profits from the grocery store. The PDA will dramatically and negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood, 150 feet, 50 feet higher than allowed by the South End zoning laws. The Juker Company was before the board 3 to 4 years ago looking to build 15 stories at East Berkeley Street, which they were denied due to the public comments that did not support it. The BRA board did support the 11 stories. We plead with the BRA board not to approve 150 story buildings at the Davis project or along the Shawmut Ave going all the way to East Berkeley Street. And the space also lacks. And also, the tenants of Castle Square have been intimidated through this entire process with the Davis Company. They refuse to meet with the Castle Square residents unless we would meet with them by ourselves. We told them that we would meet, but we prefer to also have another abutter in that meeting. To this date, Davis has never contacted us to meet again. Also, a petition was distributed in Chinatown saying that the Castle Square Tenant Organization supports this PDA. That was a misleading and false petition that was distributed throughout the Chinatown community.
Okay, well, thank you very much,
We plead
Ms.
that you do not, and that you agree to separate the parcels and let them be voted on individually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening, member of the board of BRA. I still call you BRA. The board members and also everybody, good evening. My name is Ann Moy. I'm a longtime resident of Castle Square Apartments. And I've been living there since early 50-some years. So what Deborah said and everybody mentioned, and I'm glad that a lot of people from the community, from the Chinatown community, support the affordable housing, which is true. I just want to say that this project right on Shawmut Avenue, if you compare to 345 on Harrison Avenue, that's a whole block of 500 units. And this 112 Shawmut Avenue with two sites, the church and the CCBA, is only 1/4 of the block. And Castle Square is also 4 sides of the street of South End. So the other reason, the thing is that it's very tight. And when I saw the proposal at the beginning, you're going to be having 500 units in that 1/4 of the corner of Shawmut Avenue, Washington Street, and Harold Street. And it's already created a lot of traffic already. And today, you have seen a lot of traffic going up to the expressway. Now, the second point is that when we, several years ago, we met with the Juga company, they are willing to cut down the building to 11-story high. 30 seconds, okay, fine. And then, so that tells you something about Juga and this corner. It's the same thing. And second, because I lived there for all these years, and people come and go. And I have seen a lot of changes. And don't forget that we lived there for decades already. And this is not the Seaport Boulevard. That is the industrial land on the in block. There's no one live around there. There's residents live on Shawmut Avenue, Tremont Street, East Berkeley, everywhere. And Castle Square been there for in the 60s. So I just want to tell, let you all know that you have to consider us as neighbors too. And when we give input, and it's also very important also. And Mr. Goldman know that, because you have worked with us in Castle Square. And I just want to say, I do.
We have a time limit here. So.
The affordable housing, yes, I understand. But then we want to oversee some committee, a sightseeing committee, to work with the CCBA. We were willing to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none, what we're going to do is, are there any questions from the board or comments?
I have a question. I think our board is also completely committed to creating more affordable housing, but I'm not totally understanding the affordable housing that's in this PDA. I thought affordable housing was given out in a lottery, so I'm not totally understanding how a lottery could be guaranteed to go to certain community. So can you talk about that? I'm not really understanding the affordable housing.
Hi, this is Tim Davis, Housing Policy Manager, PDA. I'll go through a couple of things about the project and also answer your question. The project under the PDA requirements for the Harrison Albany zoning requires a minimum of, for this height and this FAR, requires a minimum of 20% of the housing within the entire project be income restricted. And what is planned is that the units that would have been provided as part of the TDC property would be next door, included within the CCBA property. And then as far as the church property, they will determine that later, where they want to keep that 20% on site, or if they want to move that 20% also into the CCBA portion of the project. The CCBA themselves have suggested that they want to exceed the 20% that they provide to be 30%. So any units provided by Davis or the church would go on top of that to increase the percentage. And this is, so what we're looking at the moment is that for the entire PDA, the minimum would be 26%, which is higher than the 20% required under the zoning. And that is the starting point. Myself, from the BPDA staff, as well as Sheila Dillon and D&D staff, have been meeting with the CCBA staff already to discuss means by which we may be able to increase the affordability in their portion of the project. And also, depending on the funding sources, that may also change the area median incomes for the specific units in the project. So if they get certain city funding, a certain percent of the units would have to be at 30% AMI, some at 50, some at 60, and so on. So we are looking at the CCBA property as this approval is the start of that conversation, which opens the doors for them to be able to access the public funds that will be needed to increase it beyond the 26% that are on the PDA. You asked a question specifically about how the units are accessed. They are, there would be a lottery process, and obviously there has to be advertising that is both citywide, but also there can be advertising within the Chinatown community to make sure that anyone and everyone within the Chinatown community is aware of and ready to apply for those units. Yeah. This is Peter Munkenbeck from CCBA team.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I just wanted to add a couple of things to what Tim had said and emphasize that CCBA is committed to a minimum of 30% of the units that it produces being affordable, and in addition is happy to accept an additional what will be approximately 9% or more that will be coming from next door from the Davis parcel, and another 5 or 6% that might come from the BCEC parcel. But in any event, from the beginning of this process more than a year ago, CCPA has said openly, publicly, that whether it's the 39% floor currently indicated or the 45% floor that would come with the addition of the BCEC units, that if there are additional resources available through the city, the state, to augment that number above 45%, that would also be fine with CCBA. So the floor is 26% overall, and the floor on the CCBA parcel, given that Davis is doing it on our parcel, is 39, and that could well grow either because BCEC adds its units to ours or because the city enables us to produce additional affordable units with funding.
And so all the affordable, go ahead. All the affordable units are going to be offered in a citywide lottery. Is that correct?
Correct. And the city has a department for that, and they're very clear and very strenuous in reviewing detailed plans for how to conduct the lottery, and they supervise that process meticulously. One other thing that it's been suggested that I mention, because a question was raised by some of the opponents about CCBA's capacity to deliver, beyond being the owner and operator for many years of Taitung Village, which is 214 units, they've also, I have also worked with them and others in Chinatown to produce Parcel 24, which people know as One Greenway, which is a 40% affordable development, 350 units of which 150 are affordable at various levels and various tenure types, and also worked with ACDC, which is another Chinatown-based organization, to produce the Metropolitan, where the affordability is also approaching 50% and is a 250-unit project. So the capacity exists in the community. I've personally worked on both of those other projects. I'm personally signed up to work on this one, and we have no doubt about our ability to deliver, although it will take a bit of time to put together all of the elements that are necessary.
So the Davis Company's building is going to be built first. This
Correct.
is my understanding. And what is the time frame of that? And then what is the time frame of the other two buildings?
My understanding for Davis is that they plan to start this year, fourth quarter of this year, and would expect to be complete in 18 months? End of 19, okay. Right, so conservatively, early 2020 for their occupancy.
And then the other two buildings?
And the CCBA building, the lease was mentioned with the store. We will approach the store and discuss a mutually acceptable shortening of that lease, but it is not 7 years.
What's the store? I'm sorry.
The C-Mart is
Oh.
currently occupying the CCBA parcel.
Oh.
It's a supermarket or a small market. And their lease runs until July of 2023, which is 5 years from now. And we will approach them about an earlier termination. That's the outside date for our groundbreaking. But we would expect to be able to shorten that because the incentive of giving them somewhere they can come back to is something that they're not entitled to. And so that is our bargaining chip in terms of arranging for an earlier start.
So can maybe someone from the BPDA revisit this PDA with all these buildings on these different time frames?
So good evening. My name is Jonathan Greeley. I'm the Director of Development Review here at the BPDA. We're really excited about this project. This is a single PDA that has 3 different components. Those 3 different components happen to have 3 different owners. That is not uncommon throughout the city of Boston to have multiple ownerships living within a PDA. In fact, one of the things that we're really excited about is we've got a market rate developer who has provided expertise and pre-construction, pre-development financing to help 2 other largely nonprofit social service organizations get to this point where they are going to have an approved project within an existing PDA. That's a huge leap forward. So one of the things we talk about in the city of Boston all the time is the ability to deliver affordable housing, getting the land, they had that, getting the pre-development phasing done, we've gotten that done now too, and also jump-starting the 50 Harold Street piece of this, which would have approximately $15 million from the Davis Company to jumpstart the financing in terms of that affordable housing contribution. That's like starting on second base for some of this stuff. And so we are comfortable with this phasing. Additionally, I just want to be very, very clear. You guys approved earlier 217 Albany Street project. That project had a bit of a presentation, a little bit more extensive here on the Harrison-Albany process. It talked about the different zoning guidelines that were well received, approved in 2012 by this very board, and have produced a number of projects. 321 Harrison, 345 Harrison, 37380 Harrison-Albany further down the street. All of these projects have been extremely responsive to the underlying zoning. This project is as well. They are unlocking additional FAR as a result of the high levels of affordability. One of the things, you have to get to a 20% threshold. This project has achieved a 26%, which they've stated is a minimum. We anticipate and expect that to be much higher based on the efforts of CCBA and BCEC going forward. Additionally, those 2 phases, while they will be later, there will be ongoing design review from both the BCDC and BPDA staff. Additionally, we have worked really hard to manage other goals that were embedded in the zoning. One of those was a 20% commitment to open space, right? So 20% of this project is public realm or open space, including a really important passage between Shawmut Avenue. Is this right? No. 27% in terms of CCBA, but there's an important cut through now between Shawmut Avenue and Washington Street, which is something that is a stated goal of the planning initiative. There's also a focus on setbacks, height regulations, et cetera. This project is extremely responsive to the underlying zoning that is a direct result of the community process from several years ago. So I will agree that this is unique, but it's certainly not unprecedented. And we are really excited about not only for the affordable housing piece, but cannot underestimate the fact that we've got a church that has a significant membership in Chinatown getting to produce and establish a brand new full holdout, not only a church, but significant community space as well, that will be widely available to the South End and Chinatown communities. That includes Castle Square, that includes Chinatown, that includes the Ink Block area. So this is a really happy marriage of a number of factors: market rate housing, affordable housing, and significant community space.
Go ahead, Mr. Moynihan.
Jonathan, if you could take that a step further, Jonathan, I heard someone say single project. So without this PDA, how many affordables?
Without the 10 and 10. Yeah, so a couple different things. Without the PDA, right? So there's a number of different thresholds. Without the PDA, any projects on this would have to hit the 13%, the minimum, right? If they were requiring zoning relief. That's not a road we went down. That wasn't the proposal. But the fact that they are pursuing a PDA, they have to hit a 20% threshold, and with the extra FAR they produce, there has to be 20% on site. If they didn't get to the FAR, if there's a lower FAR of 6.5, they'd be at 10% on and allow 10% buyout or 10% offsite creation. So again, this project is achieving all of the goals stated in the Harrison-Albany study, and I would say and then some.
So I was doing some numbers. So with the 536 units, I believe, is the total. 536 units total.
Yeah. Yes.
So with the 13%, you'd have 70 affordables. With the 26% minimum, you're at 139. So that's the difference between single and versus the PDA. So you're
There's a significant delta
you're
between.
picking up 70. You're picking up 70 extra affordable units doing it this way.
At a minimum.
At a minimum, the 26 is the minimum. Yeah.
Okay, are there any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations. I would just need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second?
Second.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Aye.